Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about a pretty massive shift in how we might build the internet of the future. I mean, imagine for a second that instead of writing lines and lines of code, you could create something just by describing its feeling, its idea, its vibe.
Yeah, let's just start right there with that question because it really gets to the absolute core of a new technology called Glacier. And look, this isn't just some sci-fi hypothetical. This is a real challenge to decades of how we've done software development, and it could potentially unlock creativity for a whole new wave of people.
So, here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we've got to talk about the problem. Then, we'll get into this whole vibe coding thing, see what it's built on, how it architects a new web, and finally, the arrival of what they're calling the vibe coder.
All right, so to really appreciate what Glacier is offering, you have to start with the problem it's trying to solve. For years now, we've heard this promise of a decentralized web, right? A web that's truly owned by its users. But for most creators, that promise has been just out of reach.
And you can see why right here when you look at the technical stack. Building in Web3 isn't just about learning a new language. It's about wrestling with super complex cryptography, trying to figure out decentralized storage, navigating all these different front-end frameworks. The dream of a sovereign web just gets totally bogged down in all this stuff before a creator can even get to their actual idea. So how do you solve that mess of complexity? Well, a company called LINKSPREED is proposing something pretty radical, a completely new way to even think about creating things online.
They're calling it vibe coding. And yeah, the name sounds kind of casual, but the shift it represents is incredibly serious. The idea is, instead of starting with syntax and semicolons, you start with your core idea. You just describe the intent, the feeling, the vibe, and you let an AI handle the hard part of translating that into actual code. In practice, the process is brilliantly simple. The creator just provides the what. You might say something like, I want a private collaborative art space for verified artists. Glacier's AI then interprets that intent and generates the entire how. The user authentication flows, the visual layout for the gallery, and all the decentralized plumbing needed to make it work securely behind the scenes.
Now, for this new way of coding to even be possible, it needs a completely new foundation to stand on. And it's all built on a different way of thinking about digital identity, which the source material is calling Web4. Let's just put this into context, because it's a really big deal. In Web 2, our identity is trapped in silos run by big tech. Think login with Google. Then came Web 3, and our identity was often just an anonymous wallet address. This Web 4 concept proposes something totally different, a universal identity, or UIID, that you actually control and that can represent different sides of who you are online. And when apps are built this way, from the ground up, the whole user experience changes. Your data is your data. Apps have to ask you for permission. Your identity is portable, so you can move between platforms seamlessly. And security is baked in from the start, using the same kinds of global standards we have for things like e-passports. Okay, so let's get into the mechanics. How does a simple vibe become a fully functioning, secure, decentralized app? This is where Glacier steps in to do all the heavy lifting. You see, this Web 4 thing isn't just a buzzword. It's more like a formula. It's the fusion of two incredibly powerful forces. On one side, you have human creativity, now understood and amplified by AI. And on the other, you have the secure, user-owned foundation of decentralized tech. Glacier is designed to be the bridge that connects them. This quote from LINKSPREED's CEO just hits the nail on the head. For decades, developers have had to be translators, painstakingly converting human ideas into machine language. This new way of thinking completely flips that. The machine's job is now to get out of the way and just facilitate our creativity. And that's the key here. The really messy, complicated technical translation process is basically being replaced by a direct path from an idea to a finished product. The implications of that are huge. It doesn't just lower the barrier to coding, it could lower the barrier to entrepreneurship itself.
So what does this heavy lifting actually look like? Well, first up, the front end. The part of the app you actually see and interact with. Glacier just builds it automatically. It handles making sure it works on any screen and is accessible right from the start.
Then there's the backend, the engine that makes the whole thing run. This is where it gets really complex. I mean, imagine you wanted to build an independent social network. Glacier can generate the logic for everything from peer-to-peer messaging to even AI-powered content moderation.
And finally, Glacier tackles what is often the single biggest hurdle in decentralized tech, managing the data. Based on the vibe you describe, the AI analyzes what you're trying to do and builds a smart data structure from scratch, making sure it's both secure and fast. So, with all that technical stuff laid out, let's look at the journey of this technology. It went from being a secret internal project to something that's about to be released to the public.
Yeah, this didn't just happen overnight. It's actually the result of years of internal research, which was codenamed Project AT12. And following a recent, pretty critical update to their identity system, it's all led to this, a public launch happening next week. And here's a final, really cool detail. This isn't coming out of Silicon Valley. It's being built in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is just a powerful reminder that the future of the internet is being built in tech hubs all over the world, not just in one place. So when you boil it all down, it points to one powerful idea. For anyone out there who's ever had a great vision for an app or a new online community, but was completely stopped by the technical complexity, the message here is that barrier is about to be dissolved. And that leaves us with one final, provocative thought. As the role of the creator shifts from being a technical translator to more of a creative director, the tools are becoming radically more accessible. The focus is no longer on the technology, it's back on human creativity. So the question is no longer how, it's what will you build?